Hi there. In this lecture, we will be completing our To-Do's app's main functionality by completing these two final methods here. So in essence, what we want is we want our update method to update a particular instance, and we want our delete method to delete an instance. So I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm not actually going to delete the instance when I use delete, but rather I'm going to delete the reference in the list items list to that particular instance. This is not the most efficient way of doing things, but it will work for the purposes of what we want to do. So let's start with our deletes method, as I think this one is a little bit easier than the update one. So what we want to do with our delete method is we essentially want to just pass a parameter, let's call it index, into this delete method, and then uh, we want to delete the list items index at this position index. So what we would do in Python to delete a reference to a particular index would be to say del, and then the name of the list items, so list, or the list, which would be list items, and then we specify the position, which in this case is index. So now what we're doing is we're passing an index into our delete method, and then we are actually deleting the reference at that specific index in our list items from the list item. So when we actually print out our list items, you'll notice that it has disappeared. So let's maybe just say title here. So what it will do is it will now print out the item, not title. And then what we need to do is we need to call this delete method. So two things to notice here. The first thing to notice is that self is not being passed into our delete method. We don't say self in here at all. We just call the index. This is because delete is what we call a static method. Now, what on earth is a static method? Basically, a static method is a method that's within a class that knows nothing about the current instance of the class. So it doesn't have an complete attribute. It doesn't have a specific title other than what is set as the default. We do not instantiate a static instance of a class. So the way that we would call this particular method, even because we don't have any instances attached to them, is we just call the class, which is list item, and then we can call the method straight onto that class, which is great. But again, we don't have any reference to these two particular instances at all within this. So I want to delete our reference at position 0. So position 0 is getting passed in at the index, and because there's no reference to the instance itself, we are only referencing the list item list. We can now happily delete the list items index at position index, which in this case is 0. So I want you to maybe take a few moments just to think about what would happen if we had to run this code, if we had to now print out this code in our console. So just think about that. I'll give you a few seconds and then I'll run it, and let's see if you were right. Cool, welcome back. So let's run this code and see what happens. Oh, lovely. Unbound method delete must be called with list item instance as first argument. Got int instance instead. Basically, what this error is telling us is that there is no instance attached to this specific delete method, and that is because we have not told Python, or we have not told this class, that this is a static method. Now that is very important because we are explicitly telling Python that we do not want an instance to be related to this method at all. So there is a special keyword, which is the @ and then static method, which we use to tell Python that whatever code block comes next is going to be static. So let's run this. So just to be aware, static method and then the method underneath that is now telling us that this needs to be static. Great, let's run this and see what happens. Fantastic. So wash the floor is the only thing that we have now. So that means that wash the dishes has been deleted. Let's test this and use 1. So now wash the dishes should remain because it is at list item position 0, and wash the floor should be deleted. Great, and we have washed the dishes. So we are successfully deleting the reference to our list items using a static method in our list item class. That is great. Next, let's look at our delete method. So we know that, our update method. We know that delete is passing in an index, and then we are just deleting it. So the only real difference in terms of the functionality of our class would be that we want to pass in an index, and then we want to update something in that index. So updates, the word update isn't really sufficient for us. We want to be able to update something. So we want to be able to update the isComplete attribute or the title attribute. So let's stick with title because it just seems like the easiest for now. And we are going to rename this function to update title. So we are updating the specific title. So this is great. So now we can actually let's add our static keyword so that Python knows that is a static method, and then we also want to pass the title into this method. So let's just call it title here. Great. So now what we can do is we can call our list items list variable again inside of this method, and we can say list items at position index. And because we've passed the entire object reference into every single list items index, we can actually just now say list items at position index, and it will return the entire instance of that object. So we can just as easily say dot title, and it will now get the title for that specific instance, which is great. So I want to make that title equal to the title that we have just passed into our newly called function that we haven't called it yet, but the function that we are going to call. And what it will do is we'll set the title of that instance equal to title. This is great. So it's not creating any type of referential links, but it is rather actually fetching the self. So if there was an instance here, we could easily just say self.title. So it is actually calling the instance inside of this list item, although it is found within a static method which doesn't actually know which instance it is relating to other than the index that we've passed in. Great. So now let's actually call that. So again, because it's a static method, we will be calling list item, and then I want to say update title, and I want to pass in firstly the index, and secondly I want to pass in the string of the title that is now going to be updated. So let's say wash the kitchen. Great. So we are now passing wash the kitchen in the title, and we are getting the index. So at position 0 here, our index is equal to the instance of wash the dishes, and we are getting the title of that, which is wash the dishes, and we are now changing the title, updating the title to pass to what the second parameter is in our static method, which is wash the kitchen. So now if we run this, we should see wash the kitchen. Fantastic. So now if we take this out, this delete function, we just uncomment it for now, and we set this now to 1, we should have washed the dishes, and now we are updating the list items index at position 1, which is wash the floor, because this is position 0, and this is wash the dishes is position 0, and wash the floor is position 1. Wash the floor should now become wash the kitchen. Great. Wash the dishes, wash the kitchen. That is exactly what we want. And now we have a basic to-do app that functions, which can create, we can read by using referencing our list items, we can update, and we can delete. That is great. Well done, everyone.